Good day and welcome to Lovers of History. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Have you ever wondered in detail the story about why we celebrate this holiday? This I will explain, and I'm honored to do so, as this is as much a part of our national heritage, no matter what our background is as Americans.
Now, as a lot of you may be familiar with my series of the tour of Europe and how I've talked about the Protestant Reformation, originally the Protestant Reformation didn't originally reach England until King Henry VIII only brought the Reformation to England out of political reasons. But it was more so out of nationalism that Protestantism was defended by Queen Elizabeth I, and how Anglicans and Puritans alike defended England from a Catholic invasion. But however, during the reign of King James, as Queen Elizabeth had died without an heir, he had great sympathies for the Catholics. However, somebody still tried to assassinate him, of course, on the 5th of November, and then there were two attempts to depose him. Along with the attempt to assassinate him, a date of the 5th of November which is sadly no longer remembered among the Americans. Which it should be of great significant importance. Now, I'm not saying all the Anglican Church was bad. I'm just saying that there were corrupt elements in it. But let's face the facts. You're going to get corrupt people in every congregation. However, the Puritans were counterculture. Basically both counter to the Catholic Church as well as the Anglican Church. King James wouldn't tolerate even the Puritans, even though Queen Elizabeth was merciful to them and basically treated so many of them as criminals, and they were excommunicated from the Church of England. Many of them fled to Holland in 1609, but later on were afraid that their children would be assimilated into the Dutch culture, and they wanted to keep their English identity. So they eventually got two ships from the king after he granted them permission to sail for the New World. It was in 1620 that the Pilgrims had embarked on their voyage. These Puritans, or rather separatists, like Martin Luther King, wanted to purify the church from within, and they felt that the only way to move on was to separate in the meantime. But in the process of their sailing in 1620, the Speedwell really stank. It was not seaworthy at all. So then everyone else was crowded onto the Mayflower. And by the time they reached the New World, they were driven off course when they were supposed to land in Hudson's Bay, and they were driven to Cape Cod, which is today in Massachusetts. And here is when the real trouble began, because then they ended up having to scavenge for food, and there was not much food, and many of them had suffered from malnutrition. They didn't know how to farm properly, their provisions were running low, and half of them had died in the winter.
In fact, many of the villages which were interpreted as being abandoned were actually burial sites and places where many of the natives had been storing their corn. This, of course, had once been inhabited land, but unfortunately so many of the natives had died of smallpox, including the Pawtuxet tribe.
Of course, there was one who spoke English as adequately as I speak German and French, Samoset, who opened communications with the English settlers on behalf of Chief Massasoit, chief of the Poconoets, and the leader of the Federation of the Wampanoag tribe. Squanto agreed to stay with the Pilgrims and help them to farm and use the remainders of fish to fertilize the crops, and it revealed a bountiful harvest. He was an answer to prayer. Well, I call him Squanto as that's what he's famously known for, though the pronunciation of his name in his Native American tongue was Tisquantum. And as a matter of fact, the harvest day that they celebrated lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, which came to be known as Thanksgiving. And it was celebrated not only by the white European settlers, but also by the Native Americans. So this is technically a Native American celebration as well, in the name of friendship and alliance. A trait that was soon eventually lost and sadly no longer remembered. But we can let it be remembered today. Ironically, what would soon determine the future of our nation's politics was even written within the journey of the Pilgrims, as they wrote the charter of Plymouth Colony in what is called the Mayflower Compact, and it reads as follows. In the name of God, amen. We whose names are underwritten, the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign lord, King James, by the grace of God, of Britain, France, and Ireland, King, Defender of the Faith, etc., having undertaken for the glory of God and the advancement of the Christian faith and honor of our king and country, a voyage to plant the first colony in the northern parts of Virginia, do by these presents solemnly and mutually, in the presence of God and one another, covenant and combine ourselves together into a civil body politic for our better ordering and preservation and furtherance of ends aforesaid, and by virtue hereof to enact, constitute, and frame such just and equal laws, ordinances, acts, constitutions, and offices from time to time as shall be thought most met and convenient for the general good of the colony, unto which we promise all due submission and obedience. In witness whereof we have hereunder subscribed our names at the Cape Cod, the 11th of November, in the year of the reign of our sovereign lord, King James, of England, France, and Ireland, the 18th, and of Scotland, 54th, Anno Domini, 1620. Of course, Virginia is what they knew the New World as during that time.
Although this event was generally celebrated among many of the American states, it was generally not held on a single day much like we have it today. But many of them did do it in memory of the struggles of the Pilgrims until their first harvest. Abraham Lincoln was the first president to take note and consider making Thanksgiving a public holiday. Franklin Delano Roosevelt eventually made it official, making Thanksgiving an official public holiday. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. Remember the struggles of the Pilgrims. God bless.